Hello, everybody, and welcome to Everything Digital. It's 2020, and we are in lockdown. Today, we are going to talk about electronic drums and how I make them work for me. I've been playing drums since I was a young teenager. I stumbled across a drum kit by mistake at a friend's house and kind of fell in love with it pretty much immediately. There's nothing better than beating the crap out of everything. It makes a lot of noise, and everybody loves a great drummer. I am not a great drummer. I'm a very simple drummer. I played in a high school band. We started messing around with music in junior high. My best friend at the time was playing bass. I played drums. I think we had a guitarist and a keyboard player as well. I cannot remember. And then when we got to high school, we were playing in a proper band. We had some gigs in clubs and pubs and high school events, and we just had a good time. We wrote some original songs. We've done some covers, and we just really had a good time. I had some problems with my legs during my army service, so I couldn't play drums. I picked up a guitar, and I've been a guitarist ever since, but I've always loved keeping on with the drums. I haven't done so much, but I practice occasionally and keep at it. Now, these days, you cannot make a noise almost anywhere. Most of the bars and the clubs have some kind of a noise restriction, and most crowds have become really, really sensitive to high volumes. Even when you're doing concerts now and big events, most guys cannot crank up the guitar amps so much. In the smaller theaters, a lot of times they have to turn the guitar amps facing backwards, and it's just noise has become a problem. And when a lot of times people consume their music through one of these, and that becomes a problem where people are so used to having a small, very soft sound. Most people listen to music either with the actual speakers of the cell phone or small little speakers like AirPods or whatnot. And more places restrict the volume of the bands. The clubs and the pubs are usually in some kind of a neighborhood, and people can't have volume. Musicians also have become very aware of sound pressure levels, and a lot of people are now using in-ears, as I am as well. By the way, shout out to Dirk from Noise Clipper for the awesome 6-driver in-ears. It comes in this awesome little package, and it's probably one of the best purchases I've ever done in terms of protecting my ears and enjoying the performance. Now, let's get back to the drums. I've got a Roland TD-25, which I have expanded a little bit. I'm going to show you the setup shortly. I've added a few extra cymbals and a side stick pad. Now, that setup works pretty well. There's a lot of tuning that has to be done as far as sensitivity is concerned and the tuning of the actual sounds inside the module. The module is pretty decent. It's not the best out there. It's one of the recent ones out there, and the sounds are pretty decent. However, that doesn't necessarily work for me all the time. It's a nice quick setup, but I wanted more. So what I've done is I've gone and connected it to a Mac with samples, a sample library, and I've kind of done a loop where it returns the sounds to the module. So you download the Roland driver, load it on the Mac, I load the sound library in Logic, I MIDI trigger via USB some of the pads into Logic, return the sample sounds back into the module, and play out the stereo outputs into my mixer. Furthermore, I've got a Roland TM2, which is a small little expansion module with just 2 triggers in, and that triggers my side stick and my splash. So you got your center hit, your rim shot, and then you're missing your side stick. Still plays the rim shot, so I added the side stick. And then I wanted an extra splash. That I'm actually running a small SD card into the TM2 because the internal sounds are not that great, especially for cymbals. There's maybe 1 or 2 cymbals, but you can load your own samples. So I pulled a splash sample from Logic, and I load it into the SD card, and that plays this sound. Now let me play you the individual sounds. Oh, yes, by the way, the hi-hat is quite, because it's a VH11, it's got a variable, you see it goes up and down. It's on a normal hi-hat stand, and the samples that got loaded in Logic don't correspond that well with the hi-hat. So the hi-hat I'm actually running from the internal sounds of the module, and so I'm running kick, MIDI into Logic, snare, tom, 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 all the cymbals except the splash and the side stick, and the hi-hat is actually coming back from the module. All of them actually converging from the module itself back out into my mixer. And here's the kick. Here's the snare, toms, cymbals, hats, so all of these sounds coming from 3 different sources, but coming out due to the power of digital technology coming out of the module. And it's such an easy setup, and you can tune everything individually, and it's so quick. If I think the hi-hat is a little bit too sweet, I dial down to the little tone button on there with bass and treble. I can dial up and down the tones for that. I don't have to go into fiddling too much with the laptop, and I control these two with the volume knob over there. So it gives me kind of maximum control, and it works very, very well for live. For recordings, obviously, I'll need to record MIDI, and that means I'll have to load the MIDI hi-hat in the Logic and record it in, but the performance on this is less than great. I suppose it needs a little bit more dialing before I'm very happy with the performance of the hi-hat. Now, obviously, you can control every individual component in the drum kit via the software. I don't like to tweak too much for live to try to give it a very natural sound as possible, and I rather treat the master out, the 2 left and right out, on the mixer, and just to kind of glue it together as overall, because a lot of guys like to over-treat individual pieces in the drum kit, and even in acoustic drum kits, and they forget that actually it's not just a bunch of pots and pans that you hit. It's actually a whole, and it's nice also to sometimes to treat a drum kit as a whole, whether live or studio, but it actually glues the kit together, and you'll be surprised how little work you actually have to do to get a decent sounding drum kit, whether it's acoustic or sample based, if you treat it as a whole rather than just a whole bunch of individual pieces that you just randomly stick together. Now, there are a lot of different drum kits out there on the market. Roland is regarded as the best. It's also the most expensive one, but there's a reason. The kits last for a long time. They take a beating. I've played this kit very, very loud, and I played it very, very soft. Abused it a lot. I had another few drummers play on this live when we're doing different gigs when I'm playing guitar. And it makes sense to, first of all, buy a kit that it's a name brand. You get a lot of spare parts for it. You can literally replace everything if something goes wrong, if something breaks. And it's also really, it really lasts a long, long time. It's not my first Roland kit. I had the TD-10, which is ancient. It's an ancient kit, but it was a beautiful kit and worked very, very well. I had a TD-4 as well, which is like a more like not entry level, but just a notch above entry level. And now I've got a TD-25, and I'm very, very happy with the performance. And in the future, I'm looking at getting the TD-50 expansion pack with a ride and the snare and the module. Or now they have the TD-27, which is a smaller, cheaper module, but does similar things with the digital snare and ride. And they have multiple sensors, and you can actually play a side stick on that snare where it senses your hand. So when you put your hand on the mash, you can actually play that side stick as if it was this and not the rim shot. It's fantastic. Although this snare also have positional sensors, it's obviously simpler. So you get the center sound, And as you're moving out, it triggers edge sounds. It's pretty cool to have that. Obviously, you get rimshot sound. So you get a lot of different dynamics and sonic changes close enough to a real snare performance. A lot of drummers complain that no electric kit sounds and feels anything like an acoustic kit. And to some degree they are right, but technology has changed so much over the last few years that it's getting much closer. And very much like guitar processors have become very, very close to the amp they're modeling, drums have become, especially with the aid of sample libraries, and there are plenty sound, very, very good sound libraries out there that allow you to get a really realistic sound and feel. These mesh heads are not the best one Roland has to offer, but they are right up there with some of the better ones. And you can actually tune the heads to get the right bounce out of your stick. It's realistic enough. And obviously, the noise levels. You simply cannot rehearse with an acoustic kit anywhere now. Unless you're living on some farm, we call it plots here in South Africa, and nobody's there to bother you, you simply cannot rehearse anywhere. Now I can sound like a big drum kit if I want to, like a big rock, huge drum kit. I can practice my heart out with making very, very little noise that you will hear now. This is what this drum kit sounds like without any sound. And now with sound. So you can practice with headphones on, and unless you are really, really close to other people watching TV or reading a book, you're not going to annoy anybody. However, if you're sitting close enough to somebody playing a drum kit and you're not hearing the actual sounds, that's going to become rather annoying. So I'm going to play a few songs and put them all together in a little mashup, and hopefully you'll enjoy it. I'm not a fancy drummer. I play very simple. I try to play for the song. I also haven't been playing many years in a band or at home, and only this lockdown has made me pick it up again and play every day. Otherwise, I do an occasional gig with some friends once a month, once in 2 months, bring this electric kit, play with them, and we'd have some fun. So I'm a little out of practice. I haven't done drums for a living in many years. Some songs have a counting, but other than that, it's completely freestyling. There's no time grid. You simply have to follow the song.
Goodbye, she got on a plane, never to return again. But want your love. Your love was handmade for somebody like me. Come on now, follow my lead. I may be crazy, don't mind me. Say boy, let's not talk too much. Grab on my waist and put that body on me. Come on now, follow my lead. Come on now, follow my lead.